Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Molten Modular DIY. Back in the corner again. I have acres of DIY projects to build, but I thought I'd start with a relatively simple one because I am trying a new way of doing and shooting my DIY videos because I've come to the point where there just aren't enough hours in the day to get everything done and to do all the editing, because usually I use two cameras and I've got different bits of audio and I'm meshing them together and gliding between one and the other, giving you a close-up and then pulling back and then talking about it and then time-lapsing. There's a lot really that goes into making these videos, and I kind of figure that perhaps with DIY I can be a little bit more lax. I can find a way to speed it up. I can make it more efficient so that I can do more of them rather than spending all of my time editing. Now, the caveat to that is that it's possible that mistakes will creep in. I don't mean mistakes in the build, just coughing and burping and forgetting to edit bits out, because I'm not going to be editing these down quite as fastidiously as I once did. So the idea is to capture it all as if it's a live stream. So all of my cameras and everything else is just going into the computer and it's being recorded live. So I'm just going to do it that way. I will swap and switch between views as we go so you can see different things, and hopefully it will be seamless and awesome. And then once it's done, I then will probably edit down some of the soldering so it's not just 3 hours of something. I will try to bring it down a little bit, just to bring large sessions of soldering down to some kind of manageable level. So this my first go at this is a bit of a test, really. So feel free to let me know what you think in the comments, whether this works and it doesn't upset your creative sensibilities, that I haven't put the work into the edit afterwards that perhaps I have in the past. But hopefully if this works, it just means that I can do more kits quicker and get through them and show you these awesome modules that I want to build and want to play with, and we can get more in. We can get more in and more out of our lives. You see, did I cut that cough out? See, that's a question. I'm going to have to think about that. Because probably not. I'm just going to let things flow. And so my usual way of making videos where I auto-correct and I redo a part, I'm not going to be doing that quite so much. I'm going to try just to push on through. So you'll suddenly realise that I'm nowhere near as professional or off the cuff as you perhaps imagined that I was. And it's just weird to me that it's recording over there and it's not recording into the camera. I find that very discombobulating. Anyway, so what do we have to build today? Well, today, from the huge box of possible kits, I decided to get something just the other day from Pusherman Productions, Pusherman, who are great. They're a UK-based kit supplier, and they do a lot of kits for a lot of people. This particular one is from a company called Antumbra. Antumbra? You see that under there? Well, you could, because I'd then have to go like that to make sure that you could. Oh, no, that's another thing. It's not going to be reversed. Oh, maybe it's all for nothing. If I can't reverse this camera... Now, can I flip this camera view? That's an interesting question. I'm going to go and have a look. So, can I flip this view, this one here? I think I can. You know what? I think I can. If I can rotate it. Why does it have a rotate? Maybe it already does have a rotate. Yeah, it already does. I've already done that. Oh, rats. So this was what was it? It was over here somewhere. There we go, that's better. So it was already right. I say, I'm not editing this. I'm learning as I go. It will become smoother, I think you'll find. So yeah, I've already done that. That makes sense because I'm using essentially what I use for a live stream, and it wouldn't be upside down already. I was just thinking in terms of when I edit videos, when I record stuff on this camera, I then have to turn it upside down in the edit, which I no longer have to do. So anyway, back to the build. This is going to be a rough build, okay? This is just going to be how it is because of what I'm attempting to do, and that this is an experiment and it's a worthwhile thing to do, even if it makes me look a bit amateurish. But it's all part of the process, and it will be a shame to miss this build just because I used it as a test. So what was I saying? I was essentially saying that I needed a tuner. The other night at the EMOM, had my rack there. I tuned it on my NTS2, which is a useful way of doing it. It's a nice big display and stuff, but it's a bit of a faff plugging it all together, powering it, that kind of thing. And I did tune my oscillators, but then as soon as I started my set, they seemed to be off again. And that was a little bit frustrating, and I had to plug it in again and try to work that out as I'm trying to perform. So I figured there must be a Eurorack based tuner that will do the job. And of course there are a few, most of them just overwhelmingly either wide or expensive. I mean, I can use things like the O'Toole. I've got that already that you can use as a tuner, but I don't find it very satisfying as a tuner particularly. So I thought there must be something. There must be something simple. I found one by Noise Engineering that's useful in that it takes in 3 inputs and you can switch between them, and that's very, very useful. However, it's expensive. It's like 250 quid or something. This, on the other hand, this little tiny thing, swap. Oh, I'm still on the. Oh, see, and I've just been talking, and I'm not on the wrong. This is another one of those problems. Is that I'm talking and I'm on the wrong camera. I have to get good at this, or it's just going to be too much. It's going to be too much. Is it too different? No, come on, keep at it. Keep at it. So anyway, I wanted to swap back to here to show you the front plate and go back to here. See, Nick can do it. Why can't I do it? I will. I'll get better at it. Anyway, so this is a lovely little 2 HP tuner with a single input and output. So you just use it as a through. You put your oscillator in, it comes out, and it shows you the tuning here. I think that's the plan. It's mostly surface mount, so it's mostly all done for you. There's a few bits which aren't, like the LEDs and stuff, which we're going to look at in a minute. And so I'm going to put this together, and it should be a nice little thing. If it works brilliantly, which I hope it will, then perhaps it could be I could get 3 of these. Although, of course, you know, cost is a problem. I mean, this ended up being about 80 quid delivered with tax, etc., which, you know, for a Eurorack module isn't not too bad, but for a tuner feels expensive. I mean, you can buy a guitar tuner with, you know, lights and all sorts of things on it, you know, ready-made, ready to go for about 20 quid. So I was kind of, in some ways I was thinking maybe I could just get one of those, take it apart and turn it into a Eurorack module. Maybe that's the way forward. But hey, I thought I'd give this a go. There may be... I mean, it is a relatively simple thing. It's just a fact of life that these things cost in time and energy to put together, and so there is a price tag. They're not made in their gazillions in China. They are put together a little bit more locally in small numbers. Anyway, well, maybe you've got a tuner that you would recommend that you use with your system, but the purpose of this, because it's 2 HP, it's small enough just to sit in my rack in little places, 1 at least, if not 3, that I can be running stuff through either all the time or to switch into it. That's the plan. Great. So let's get on with the build. So I'm going to be using this screen most of the time, which hopefully should see... You should see most of this. I've got to make sure I keep this in the right place so I don't wander off under these bits. You should also be able to see the build manual, which I've got from the website, and also be able to see me all at the same time. That's how this is going to work. Now, people have suggested that I live stream my DIY, which I have done in the past with the Erica Synths EDU modules. I did it with that. The thing I have with that is that, well, you know, it's not very much fun if I want to take a break. If it's like a 3-hour build, I might want to go off and get a cup of tea or go for a wee, and that's not fun live streaming content. So that seemed a bit too much, and I would end up with these enormously long videos. But at the same time, it's fun to do a live stream because you have the potential of an audience right there who are talking to you and commenting on what you're doing. So, you know, swings and roundabouts, pros and cons, but I figured that if I do it this way, record it this way, it doesn't matter what time of day I do it. I can take breaks and I can edit that out, and I can do a little bit of editing. So if I'm trying to solder 100 resistors, you know, you don't have to watch that in real time. I can squash that down. So maybe this is what I'm trying to do. It's kind of this trying to find the best path in doing this, and ultimately, hopefully, speed up the process of building and filming and editing these builds. Now, of course, it's taken me all morning to set this up, to get it together. And of course, tomorrow I'm going to go and review something else, and all of my cameras will be moved around, and I'll have to start from scratch again. But it's an intention and an endeavour, ultimately, I think, is what's important here. Right, enough of the chat. That's the other thing that I edit out usually is just loads and loads of waffle so that it isn't a 4-hour video. Okay, I have a packet full of things which you can see under here. I'm on the correct thing, and I will stick with this now unless something changes. 1, 2, 1, 2. See, I don't want to do that either. I don't want to test things. I'm just checking the recording levels of my Zoom, because I am actually recording my voice separately, oddly, although it is being recorded into the thing, which is going to bring me more trouble later on, which I haven't, it's not a problem that I've overcome yet. I've decided to ignore the problem until I actually encounter it. Which is that as this video is being captured, it's also being captured with audio from this camera and any audio that's going to go through my system when I test something out. Now, ideally, I want that to be on a separate track, but I don't have that luxury because I'm trying to capture all the video all at once, and so the audio is mixed together. I haven't quite worked out how I can break that off separately without it costing me a whole load of extra time. So the one thing I did want to break off is the voice, because the camera audio is not good enough for me. So I'm using my Zoom recorder here to record my voice. I will have to line that up with it later, but that's why I need the voice audio in the camera, so I can line that up with the voice audio on the recorder. That's a small job, so that to me is worthwhile to get the quality that I get through this rather than through this. And also, I don't want to be bringing in a big condenser microphone on an arm like I would in a live stream, because it just gets in the way and gets very noisy or gets very quiet if it's not close enough. Gosh, see, there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to think about. And so the problem I'm going to have in the future is when I get to the point of testing this, I'm going to want that audio to be nice of the device that I'm testing and the sound that's coming through, but it's going to be mixed with the audio from this camera. And that could be a problem. So I don't know what I'll do about that. It may be that I'll move to a system where I don't use any audio at all and just use the audio of this, and then I'm going to have to do a bit more in the old visual clapperboard kind of sync in order to get the audio synced up with the video, because that's more difficult if you don't have an audio reference on the video. Those are the things I'm wrestling with at the moment, but what's more important is that we solder some stuff together before I go and have my lunch. Let's see whether I can get any of this done. And this is not going to turn into a massive rambling video of stuff. Well, it will if I just keep running on. So let's see whether I can make some space over here for myself. I'll turn my what's it on. Just going to give it some water. And we're going to get to it. Okay, So let's have a look, see what's in the bag. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I could do, I was thinking about, I could set up a mirror so I can see my screen, so I can see the preview. I mean, obviously I could buy some kind of screen and feed it back and have it set here as a monitor so I can see what it is that I'm filming, or I can somehow route it back to this so I could view it on here, possibly, I don't know. Or I could just stick up a mirror, you know, like Cuckoo, and maybe that'll be an easier way for me just to visually check that I have the right thing going, as opposed to turning around like that all the time. Well, it's fascinating. I'm sure you're fascinated by all of this. Ooh. So, wasn't expecting the LEDs to be quite so orange. That's okay. So let's have a look to see what we have here. We've got a bendy header, LEDs, a lot of. That's a nut. That's a little header. Got a couple of jacks, a little button thing. That looks like the power header, or like cockerels joining in. That's nice. A few more LEDs. Awesome. A couple of screws. A brass. What's it? A jumper. And then this itself, which is the board, which I imagine is going to have to break. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was right. It may not be, but let's just assume that it is. Great. Great. Okay, now this has had a load of stuff already done to it, so I don't think I'm going to have to follow all of the instructions. See, that's interesting. The instructions, because this came to me as is from Pusherman. From Pusherman, it came with the surface mount already installed. In that case, it does already have the LEDs here. Anyway, I was reading that you can optionally install LEDs, but it seems to be they're already here. So essentially all this is doing is putting on the front panel hardware. That's pretty much it. So looking through the manual, let's just bring the manual up in a bigger way. Like so. So this is talking about soldering the Mega on. I'm going to need my glasses. I can't see a bleeding thing. Let's sort this out. Okay, right, let's see what I'm doing here. So that is already on here. So let's skip on through for a moment. So soldering on the switch. Yeah, so all these things are here. So is there something that I've done? Or maybe I just need to skip to, see, that's the op amp. I mean, this is a great manual. I'm loving the way that it's laid out. You can see where everything is going. Solder this, solder that, solder the other. They're all in place. Now this bit here, that's done. I've got those headers on. So that entire bit is done. On here, you're done with the main board. Right, okay. So on this sticky bit, all of those resistors are already in place. See them all the way along there? They're already there, as are whatever those are. Oh, there we go, LEDs behind the sockets. So really, this is a very, very small build. So let's keep on going. Okay, solder the 1K resistor. I mean, I've got no resistors. I've got to go essentially down to the front panel hardware. Okay, 12 LEDs. Now we're talking. So to Antumbra out there, if you're watching, what I would recommend is just to put a line in your manual saying, if you've bought this with the SMT, the surface mount stuff already installed, you need to start here. Or break out a separate manual just for those who have bought it with all the surface mount stuff done. And that way, you know, there'll be no confusion. You're not having to sort of go through this going, what on earth is going on? So we seem to be on page 10 is where you need to get to. 10 out of 13, so there's not a whole lot, really not a whole lot going on. So that, and then that. I mean, the software is also done as far as I'm aware, which is handy because you have to use an AVR programmer. I don't have one of those. So I think that's done. So anyway, the manual is not being particularly helpful because it's all pretty obvious. But let's follow it through as it's suggesting. So, need to get this the right way round. And the right way round is this way round. And we need to place all of the LEDs. Now the thing with the LEDs is that they are going to need to be the right way round. Now it's long leg, which is positive. Is there anything else on here that can really tell us? Because usually it's the flat bit which is negative, which you can also see on the screen print here, that you've got positive at one side and you've got a flat side on the other which indicates a negative or cathode. So when you look on the LED itself, the short leg, which should be the negative, that does have a flatter, the bulb itself has a flatter edge to it. Yeah, got me. Okay, now, you know, I could bring all this in a little bit. That might be good. I'm just trying to make sure we're in the right place. I'm not covering myself up. Yes, that's better. So, positive at the top. Stick it in. Like so. It's talking about don't soldering in big letters, so let's not do any soldering just yet. So positive. Oh, see, that's one of those reasons I would give as to why not live streaming is a good idea. So a perfect example. So I'm going to have to develop some kind of system by which I can see. It's like I need to visually wave at myself to make sure that I can like do that. Maybe that's a good thing. Bit of clapping. So the problem is that if I accidentally leave that in, or because I'm trying to do a very quick edit, not a really intense every moment edit, maybe I won't see that, and maybe you've had to endure that. Who knows? Anyway, let's look back at what we were doing. We were putting LEDs in. That's what we were doing. Right. So long leg positive, long leg at the top. That's all we were doing. That's all this is. Nothing very much. What is going on? Okay, so that's all of mine in, except for that one, which seems to have just thrown itself out. That's weird. Okay. I do have one spare, but having a spare is never a problem. So place the LEDs. Long leg goes into the positive. Yes, we did all of that. That's all going along. Then it says place the button and its cap. So the button. This fella here. This one, yeah. So this goes into this hole here. There seems to be not exactly an orientation, but it goes kind of one way or the other. That seems pretty obvious that it goes like that. So just wiggle that in. Now it's suggesting I put the cap on. Do I want to do that now? Is that going to get in the way of other things if I put that on there? Well, let me just wait until I've put the patch sockets on. So it wants us to put the jack sockets on too. So you do that with, you can see there's actually 3 holes. 1, 2, 3. And that first one is for the twangy leg. So this one up here is for this sticky outy leg here, which is kind of the earth. So you put that one in first, push up against it, and then it should go in nicely and kind of hold itself, which is just brilliant. Brilliant. Do the same on the other one, like that. So now if I look at this, I think that's going to be fine. So I'm going to go for it and just stick that on. Looks about right. I would have liked a black button perhaps, but hey, can't have everything. Place the 2 jacks, did that. So next, screw in the spacer. We still haven't said about soldering. You're done with the building, it says down there. Alright, then we'll get to the soldering in a minute. Maybe. Do not solder yet. Place place the button on his cap, place the 2 jacks. Screw the spacer from the bottom side. Do what now? So there's a spacer that goes in. I guess that's holding this up. So this, I assume, is the spacer. It's suggesting, I think, it goes like that. In which case I need a screw to come up from the underside. I've got a big screw. I've got 3 little screws. Let's see which one of these fits it. Maybe they all do. Not so much that one. Yeah, that definitely feels better. So I think the spacer... Now place the front panel on top, put the nuts on the jacks, align everything nicely, screw in spacer. I like how it looks, solder everything on the other side. Right, gotcha. Okay, so I'm trying to get this through here. And then I'm going to screw this piece of brass on the top. Like so. I'm going to take my front panel, put that there, and then also screw into the spacer here. Now, as you can see, now the LEDs are lining up. That's because they're not supposed to yet. They're going to do a bit of magic to make that happen. So I'm going to put that in. You can take a little screwdriver to give that some help. And then for the jacks, you put on these little nuts here. Now they've got slots in them, which you should have facing up, because you can get a little tool from someone like Bafako, which should fit on those to help you just tighten those up a little bit. Okay, button is free moving. Those are in nicely. So, what we want to do here, now we haven't done everything. We've still got this panel side, the angle bit. Oh no, it says we do this first. Alright, we'll trust it. So what we want to do is to have all of these LEDs poking through. So we can solder them and they'll all be flush. Yeah? Now, do we want them sticking through like poking out in front, or do we want them a bit more flush? That's a question, isn't it? Because I mean, often you get LEDs which are flat. I mean, these aren't really designed to be flat. So maybe I'm just going to do them all the way down, and that way I'm going to get it nice and even. If I try to be clever and try to put them a little back, I think I'm going to end up getting myself in trouble. So I'm just going to go simple like this. And that seems to sit quite nicely. So I think I'm going to, but if I'm sitting that, is that going to be a problem? Is that going to push in? Yeah, it is a little bit. So I'm going to want to stand this on something so that it doesn't fall over. Well, I don't mean that it doesn't fall over, so it doesn't push down on here. So I need a little something under here. I've got a little jumper there. Maybe that will be enough. I think that'll be enough. So I'm just doing that. Just putting it on this little jumper so it's not pushing on any of the LEDs. As far as I can see, the LEDs are all pushed up. So what I want to do is solder all of that, solder these bits on here, and that is, you know, pretty much getting it done. So, bit of solder. I'm going to turn on some air. So I'm blowing away the fumes. Put on my safety goggles because I'm a safety goggles kind of person. And with the help of my magnifier and my super duper soldering iron, we're going to get this done. So soldering iron to both the ring, the pad and the leg. Once it's heated up, add some solder. And that should be enough. Should be enough. Having to hold on to it because it's a little bit wobbly. So some of the finest soldering you've ever seen, I should think. From the steadiest of hands. Good. And when you get to this end, you can then do the switch. Oop. and then the jack sockets. Lovely. What is it? Glasses are steaming up. So just check along your soldering, see if there's any obvious faux pas, things which haven't worked. Dry joints, bridged joints. That's looking pretty good to me. My tummy's rumbling. This is all part of the extra content you get because I'm not trying to edit it down quite so much. So that's all good. So that's all in, that's all good. Now we've just got to get this side header in, because this is going to be what's attaching us to the rest of the card. So how is that working? Is it going? How is it going in exactly? Like that? Maybe I need to look at it. So okay, so this right angle header between the two boards shown in the picture. Make sure that the boards are perpendicular to each other, then solder both boards. Helps just to solder one pin first. Right, so these two essentially got to go together. And because it's 2 HP, you don't want this sticking out the side or like that. They need to be like this. So how are we doing that exactly? So component side, panel side. So I think they're saying that the long side, the long edge, goes into the components board. Okay, and then this must therefore go this way round into there. Yeah, so that's how it's going to work, but all of these little things here are getting in the way, so I've got to get rid of those first. So just with a pair of clippers, take off the offending legs. I find if I put my finger over the top, they don't twang off and hit something, although that can be fun sometimes. But it's not fun finding a resistor leg or an LED leg in your foot, because it's been carelessly thrown across your workshop. Get rid of the legs. I've got this pot of sin down here which everything goes into, which it's just like solid metal now. So that's in there. So this has got to go in like this, and that's going to be how that works. And that way we've got the power coming off here, and whatever it is this is, don't know what that is, must be the programmer or something. But that is how it's going to go together. So we just need to solder this big long yellow bit. I think I'm going to solder it first. See, getting that in there is going to be tricky. Doing that is not going to be as difficult. So I think I'm going to solder it here. Solder both boards, doesn't suggest which way or the other. So I think if I do this one first, I can do it probably without taking this off, because I don't really want to. No, well, look, LED there is a bit squat. Oh well, never mind. So yeah, so I think I can get my soldering iron in this edge here without too much bother. Getting in focus along here without having to take it all apart. So let me do that first, moving everything else out of the way. I get in there. Yeah, it's not going to be easy for you to see. I could put it sideways. Is that going to help? It's not going to help me. I mean, I want to make it easy for me, not easy for you. Yeah, I think I'm going to set it up this way around. In which case, as I say, you can't really see from where you are. But this won't take a jiffy. Well, he says that. That's cue time lapse and music. Probably something appropriately out of tune would be the best thing. Although, of course, with modular, you can't actually, unless you have, you know, a very musical ear or perfect pitch, who would know if something is out of tune? It's only relative to each other. Usually, I mean, if you're using a single oscillator and just messing about, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's only when you start having two things or more, but then they've only really got to be tuned to each other, in which case, what is the point of any of this? Well, I think the point is because certainly if you're trying to play with other people and collaborate, you need to have a shared pitch, whatever that may be. So that is really what I'm trying to do here. I think that went alright. That last one was a bit kind of no, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I hope I've done that right. What I should have done, of course, is just do one leg. That would have been better than this, because I don't really, oh dear, I don't actually know which way round it goes. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to go that way around because that seems to fit better. It's got to be, isn't it? Got to be. I could solder it from this side, and then it's going to droop. Let's solder it from this side. Oops. Don't know, lots of options here. This is such an optional things going on. I've also got those little nubs from where I broke the PCB off. I want to get rid of those because they're sticking out further than 2 HP. So I think I'm going to solder it this way round. It only has to be flat. There's no other thing that's going to stick out and get in the way. It doesn't need to be raised or anything. It just needs to be like that, which you should be able to see more or less. Let's give it a go. Now, I've completely made an assumption about its orientation, which is, making assumptions is not always a good thing, but manuals being what they are, you kind of do have to go with it sometimes, because some things are so obvious to the maker of the module that they forget to include little details that someone who's not familiar with it could probably use. Oh, there's a little bit of trouble in here. I'll get in around other components that I don't want to melt. Grand. So that looks like I've done the thing. What do we think? Think that's done? So you're done with the building, congratulations. Software, so say I think it's already done. Oh yeah, and that's what these other pins are for. But I don't have a device, so I'm assuming that it's all alright. Designed by David Schnebny, which is great. So I think I probably should plug it in and see whether it works. Okay, installation. Does that look right? Yeah, I think so. So this power-wise, I need the red stripe here to go with the white stripe that's on the board here. There's nothing written on here about where -12 is, but that's where the red stripe needs to go, and that tends to be marked somewhere, and that's what it's saying, and that's what the manual is saying. Yeah, got that? Good. So that's going to go that way round. Red up that way. So then this has to sit, I guess, all by its lonesome. In the middle here somewhere. Right, okay, power in the back somewhere. Let's see what happens. See, that's a nice bunch of lights. There's no smoke. That's a good sign. So I think it might be alright. It might be alright. So, what's next? Jack lights. On the back, there's a jumper enabling the jack lights. Note that by enabling, the model draws extra stuff. Do we want jack lights on? You know, I think we probably do. So why don't we do that? Because that sounds exciting to me, even if it draws additional current. So at the back here somewhere, down here, there's nothing there. What are you talking about? There's nothing there. There's no light. What? Hang on. Right. Well, there is no such thing. I mean, I've got the jumper. It says it should be here. I've just got a resistor. So what am I supposed to do with that? I do not know. Right, I worked out the jack LEDs. It's kind of my mistake. But with a caveat. So when you have a look at the manual, if I go and show you this, is that right? Yeah. When I look at the manual, it talks about it here. Here we go. Here, jack lights jumper. Now it seems to be pointing to something here. See, seems to be pointing to something in this space right in the middle, which is not. It's not pointing to this at all. It's pointing to this here, over on the left. If I put it central, this bit here. Now this is part of the front panel bit. This bit here. Which, of course, if you're not following the full build guide, because all the SMD is already done, and you're just doing the front panel stuff, you don't notice it. So that's the problem, because it is in the build guide. It is in this section here, not in the section with the LEDs. So we sort of started in the wrong place. This is again the reason why we need a separate build guide for the people who buy the kit with just the front panel stuff missing, because little details like that will get lost because you're sort of fiddling around trying to work out where to start, and that will be one of those problems. So I've got my jumper and I've got my header, which is this, and what we need to do is on here stick in this little header. Now obviously I've made this incredibly difficult for myself because I've already put the rest of it together and this doesn't come apart. It's not as if it's on a socket that I can pull out, which would perhaps have been a better idea. Instead, I've got to solder this in place there, which is tricky. Very, very tricky. I want it to stay flat. But maybe I'll do it like this. Maybe. I mean, it just needs to solder. It doesn't need to be awesome. Just need to be able to get the thing on there. So if I can get some solder on there first. And I'm going to reheat that leg and put my finger on another leg in order to straighten it up like that. See, that's better. Now I can do the other bits. Good. So you've now got that 3-pin header on here. Do you see that? Yeah, good. So I've got on here an on and an off. So I'm going to assume that if I put my jumper across those top two, where it says on, that is going to allow me to see the lights behind the jacks. So let's see what that looks like. Alright, well that seems to have done nothing. Nothing at all. So let's take my signal out, put that in. No, still nothing. So maybe I've got that wrong. Maybe I've got that wrong. In which case, let's move our little jumper and lose it in the bowels of our thing, and let's stick it on the other connection. No. Oh, that's frustrating. That's frustrating. Oh, I thought I had it then. I thought I'd sorted it. So it talks about soldering the two surface mount LEDs, but those are there. Those here, these two bits here, are the LEDs. Most definitely. Those are already there. So then it's the header, which is optional. And honestly, that looks soldered to me. It's the only place it could have been. There's nowhere else. Jack lights on is what that says to me. But it's not completing anything. Now the thing is, right, looking at this, these two, these are the LEDs. Now they've got these markings on the back, and both of them are facing in different directions, and sort of following the trace along here, it seems to go that way and then that way, so they seem to be in series. I mean, I think all this circuit is doing is turning on two lights, so they would be in series. They wouldn't be like diodes which are opposite each other because it's some kind of power rectifier malarkey. They should be the same. So if this is going through that way, there to there, then it should also go the same way round on this one, and it's not. And my suspicion is that that's a problem. Now, looking at the build guide, if I come back to this, as you can hopefully see these markings on here, they're the same way round. Same way round. They're not opposites as it is on here. So I wonder if it says anything about it. It just says solder the two LEDs, solder the sync, that, solder that. It doesn't give any indication on their polarity. So the only polarity information I've got is this here, which means that this top LED here is backwards. So what do we think? Should we give it a go? I mean, currently this is in the right place and they're not lit, so it's currently wrong. So if I take these out I'm not losing anything because they don't work as it is. If you get me. Right, so alright, so this is fun then and interesting. So let's turn this off. Well, for this I might try to bring in my helping hands, right? These are things that I rarely use because they drive me nuts. I'm going to see whether that's going to work for me. And so I want to get this one. So they need to be pointing the other way around. So, how do you desolder surface mount stuff? I have no clue. I'm going to use my solder sucker because that's the thing I'm most proficient with, which is this fella here, and see whether I can just desolder it. I mean, that's the plan, without actually losing the component itself. No, right, okay. Think how I can better do this. I should be using solder wick, of course. People are going to be telling me. Alright, so let me try to do it. Come on. Use every possibility. So let's try to use this stupid wick stuff. See whether I can make head and the tail of it. So my idea, I think, that you sort of do that. Yeah, see, that worked. That worked. That worked. So if I can turn this round. Then maybe I can just pull this off. Yes, look at that. Brilliant. Right, so the plan is turn it around, put it back on, put it back in the little hole, and with some semblance of luck and cuthba. Oh, see, that's not very good, is it? Ah! Come on, come on, come on. I remember now. I put stuff on there and then I push it into it. That's what I need to be doing. So I need to be holding this down correctly, something like that. Yes, that's a bit better. And then let's try to put something here. Well, that's the fiddliest fix I've ever seen. Now, the question is, will that do the job? Look at that. Yeah, all right, look at this. Look at that. So you know, is that important that they have an LED? Not really, but does it look nice? Yeah, kinda. Is that worth it? Was that worth it? Well, difficult to say, but there we have it. There you are. So, even if you get it from a proper company that has done a lot of the kit for you, there's still a possibility that it ain't actually right. That doesn't fill us full of confidence, does it? But hey, I think that's a rarity. That's a rare thing to happen, and a relatively easy fix. So the front, you've got display LEDs, a mode button, input jack, output jack. Great. Connect the output of your VCO. So right, I'm just going to have to connect some things up to see if we can make this work. So we can also get that together. Plug something into there. And look, we've got lights. So that should be F apparently. And that should be C. Let me just sort this out a little bit. Turn that down there. And that centre. That might be a little bit more enjoyable. Okay, connect the output of your VCO to the tune input. Press the button for 1 second, release it. When either the LED with the 0 or the minus starts to blink, now you're in display mode selection. Press the button to toggle between the two modes. Next page is for the description. I mean, I think we get that that's working. So there's either relative or there's strode mode. So I press the button for 1 second. This is now flashing. So the 0 or the minus starts to flash. Press the button to toggle between the two modes. Toggle between that mode. So now I've got strobe mode. So it's the LED is moving, and the speed that it moves is how far away you are, I think. And you essentially want it to be still. Is that right? Oh, I'm moving the wrong button. So that's A. Let me go down and check. So relative mode, the current nearest note blinks fast and above and below it. Okay. Strobe mode, the nearest note blinks fast and is bright and the others are dimmer, going up and down. Yeah. Speed of the wandering LEDs indicates the distance from the nearest note. You've got to just do it until the LED stops, doesn't matter where it stops. So is that easier? Or is this easier? Quite like that, to be honest. Strobe mode, output mode. Press and hold for 2 seconds. 1, 2. I seem to be in something else. Scale selection. Okay. I don't want to do that. I want it to be in 440. Don't want 432. So if I hold it for 1, 2. Okay, that wasn't quick enough. 1, 2. Okay, that's now on. Put it to that. So I've got sub or I've got through. That's interesting. Oh, see, that's something I hadn't noticed before. I've actually got a sine wave going into it. What was coming out was a square wave, because this is what it does. It converts it into a square wave so it can more accurately detect the pitch. But now, if I've got it on through, I've actually got the same signal coming out as went in, as opposed to what it's calling a sub, which is it's turning it into a square wave and putting it an octave lower. That's very interesting. Does it still tune okay, though, is I guess the question. Yeah. VU meter. Press and hold for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. It's now a VU meter. Kinda. 0 to 5. Okay. Yeah, no, that's not great. So we want to keep it to the mode that we want, which is this, with the throughput that we want. So the only thing that remains, as far as I'm concerned, is just to plug a tune in, just to see how that changes. And whether I can leave it plugged in or not. Because ultimately, I kind of like the idea of having it running so that I can have it going during my set, and so I can notice if it goes out. Does that make sense? So let's just take a pitch out here, stick that into, I've got enough slack, volt per octave. So that going on like this, I don't think it's a terrible thing. I think that's quite nice. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be relevant to this because I'm not tuned. If I put this into C, then tune this down to C, then it would properly reflect what's going on. Great stuff. Having that in strode mode is, I think, less helpful. Putting it in this mode. I'm just trying to get it to the point where it's one light. I mean, obviously, ideally, you want to stop the sequence, don't you? I mean, that's the plan. Just want to pause it. See, and it's good. So there we have it. There we have the Antumbra, could be Antumbra Tune, which is a 2 HP Eurorack tuner for tuning your oscillators. It works exactly as I kind of hoped that it would. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I think I can use it continuously while plugged in, so I don't have to plug something into it specifically and then tune it and then sort of turn it off. Or it has this sort of screensaver mode where you essentially turn it off or stop it from going crazy. But I like the craziness of it. That's a good visual thing, I think, in one's rack. So yeah, that's a definite winner. The build was very, very easy, nothing to it, just putting on a few front panel things, and that saves you like, I don't know, 20-30 quid on getting it, on buying it built. So a very easy build. Push them and do all the stuff where it's all flashed and it's all programmed, it's all ready to go. Just a few bits to add to it. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much there. Saving. It saves its current state. Note and octave view. Okay, when you're not in the menu, press the button quickly to switch between note and octave view. Okay, the octave display slowly blinking. It will show you octaves. Gotcha. Screensaver mode, like I say. Just press the button twice quickly. Talks about accuracy, software modifications. Good, great, good. So yeah, that's all good, I think. This is going to be a winner. This is going to be a permanent feature in my main case, I think. And as I say, there's a possibility I might buy a couple more. Because keep those oscillators, because I could switch between it. I could even potentially use like a little, just like a three-way switch. And then I could sort of either mult or take a separate output from each oscillator and stick in it and then switch between them to tune them. Or I could just bloody well patch it in with a patch cable. That's not too hard either. Or I have physically 3 of these, one next to each oscillator. I mean, that seems like that seems like overdoing it because they are 80 quid a pop. So maybe I'll go with one, see how that goes. And maybe that's the best answer. And maybe just using a... Well, I don't even know... No, I don't even need to use a mold. I can just patch straight in. Why don't I do that? That's simple, isn't it? Yeah, good. So this will have a baptism of fire when I next do an EMOM, which will probably be next month. Probably. Getting into it at the minute. So that's cool. So that is the build. Now I could finish off just by going like that, turning that on, just to amuse myself and think, and see, I have to check. I can't do it without checking. That's going to be the most difficult thing. And in some ways, having a screen that's monitoring that is better than me looking away, I think. But hey, we're all human. We're all doing this together. And I think it's probably time for me to have some lunch. So that was that. I'm going to go and edit this down. Hopefully, just quickly, just that little bit, just to get rid of any of the completely crappy bits, like when I had to go and get the electric meter read, for instance, and someone come into the door. Those sorts of factors I will edit out, and it will be interesting to see how long it takes me, because this video has taken, I don't know, how long has this video taken? 1 hour 20. So that's 1 hour 20 minutes. So well, the problem that I'm having with DIY videos is that it takes, again, of course it takes at least that time to edit it down, but it takes longer because I've got 2 cameras that I'm having to swap between and make choices on, and then having to do some time lapsing and importing audio, messing that about, and then of course cutting out all the coughs and the ums and the ahs and bits and pieces. It all takes time. So I would probably imagine that this sort of video, being this long, would take at least 2 hours to edit. So what I'm trying to do is take the recording, which I hope has happened successfully, take the audio, just stick those together, make some large cuts without listening to the entire thing back. And that's hard for me because in terms of perfectionism, I mean, I know you're probably laughing thinking that I'm a perfectionist because my stuff is so haphazard. But when it comes to video editing and things I have control over, you know, I like to do it right. I like to not have the coughs and the sniffs. I like to have it as well put together as possible. And so I'm going to attempt to do the edit on this without doing that level of detail. So if I can get this edited and rendering within half an hour, then this is a flipping win, and I will continue moving forward trying to do it in this fashion. And that's quite exciting because I mean, one of the biggest barriers I have to doing anything is the enormity of what sits before me, because there's a lot of work in doing a thing, and so finding enough time in my mind to see how I can achieve that can sometimes be difficult. So making that easier and taking it slightly less seriously in terms of where the edit is about, then that I think will help me start more DIY projects and get more done and get more throughput and get some more of these marvelous modules that I have. They're just potential modules at the moment sitting in their plastic bags. I want to transform those into actual modules that I can use and talk about. So that is the plan. And as I say, I've got so many kits right now that that's good, with lots, as I say, fantastic modules behind them. Good. Right. Good. Call it a day. Thanks very much. I hope that was helpful. And in the meantime, go and make some tunes. And again, I don't go to turn that off. I have to go over there to turn it off. It's so weird. So, yeah, this.